What a remarkable thing to be here together. And maybe it's just practice period mind. I feel choked up just listening to that chant. Maybe I need more sleep. I'm so grateful for this community. Roshi's sitting on the floor. I haven't seen that in a long time. And she's the ground of this place. And she said, "You mean I get walked on?" Hopefully not. Who's doing that? I apologize. It's all my fault. And just thinking this morning, Fuxin gave this beautiful exploration of the precepts with us. And the day before, Wendy Johnson led us in a ceremony of rematriating beautiful corn grown in our Three Sisters garden by the residents to Roxanne Swensel, who gave it to us, who entrusted it to us to grow, and gave us a new assignment, which was so fun. And Sensei Kozan gave the talk on Saturday. What is Buddha? And then Wendy again, last Wednesday, a year ago, which was a week ago. And then just this practice field. Winter practice period often has more people in it, and more guests, more residents seem to be here too. And there's a sense in that fullness, both of kind of the fullness of practice and also the, how should we say, the greater the complications at times. And I love that Kozan keeps reminding us that the annoyance you feel, the frustration you feel, that's all part of it. And I think my own kind of emotion is similar in that whether it's feeling, annoyed at something that happened or just touched by simple small things, we're more open when we're in this container. When we're sitting 4 times a day for an hour or more with our breath, with ourselves. And when we're detoxing, we're in withdrawal from all of those things that are normally distracting us. And I think it's actually something, it's hard to remember because we're in a new place, we're in a kind of a new way of life to a certain extent. Even the residents who live here full time, it's like a step up in that withdrawal from those things. Whether it's, watching TV or scrolling on the phone or having a glass of wine or 5 or, or here's another one, as Roshi often reminds us, all the intoxicants of this life, including constant socializing, which is not a bad thing by itself. Socializing by itself is not a bad thing. But as we take this vow of silence for, at least half the day, and then hopefully more throughout the day, this noble silence where we don't socialize, we communicate meaningfully and constructively, and we let the personality building rest. And that, I think, causes a withdrawal, a sense of emptiness maybe that at first feels uncomfortable. And all of that together, all of these differences are in a way, we're in a recovery from modernity, from the kind of constant barrage of attention-seeking, attention-grabbing stimuli. And so it's hard. It can be hard. And also, I think if you're here, you must have some faith that there's a reason for that. Or maybe you've just seen the effect of the constant, stimulation of those things through your life that's ultimately unsatisfying. That's like, this isn't working for me to work all day and then go home and numb out because it's too painful to feel. And so we're here feeling uncomfortable in a different way to release ourselves from the grip of that, really swimming against the stream of that kind of capitalist attention economy thing. And we're still part of it, of course, but maybe we've gotten a taste of what the quiet can bring, the peace of that. And then, you know, how only in that space of quiet can those beautiful kind of moments arise. Whether it's after a long time without snow, the other day, the snow was falling. How many people were just stopped in their tracks by this like light, where she talks about there's female rain and male rain and, you know, kind of these different qualities of rain. And I wonder if you've ever thought about snow as having, you know, there's like strong, big, chunky snow and then soft, light snow. And this one was like the very soft snow, but it was swirling around in that way that's just like in slow motion. And I was in a hurry to go somewhere as always, but I just had to stop. And I took a photo, but you know, I looked first and then I took a photo. Or or today, Shinryu, where I just saw you, Shinryu showed me that he was like looking at this piece of juniper that was just cut. He's like, oh, look at this. And I was like, what do you got there? The cut of the juniper, you know, it was only like 1.5 or 2 inches, and it had dozens of rings. I mean, it must have been a really old tree. You couldn't even count them. I mean, it must have been 30, 40 rings, decades of growth. And it had died and it had been cleared, and now it was going to provide warmth. But in between cutting it and burning it, someone had the moment to look and see this incredible work of art, this beautiful formation. I'm sure that kind of thing happens in normal, distracted life too, but I think the opportunity here is greater to stop and take in that quality of stillness and slowness. And then, of course, one of my all-time favorites is during Soji in the sunroom, the sweeping's happening and the dust is floating up into the air. And then the light streams in and you can see the light beams, you know. And part of you is like, oh, I don't know if we should be breathing this dust. Should we turn on the air purifier? And then part of you is like, that's so beautiful. So, yes, I just feel so inspired by you all who are doing this practice. Whether you're in the practice period here in person, online, or you're joining us as our local Sangha, our community, our worldwide Sangha, it's so unusual, so rare to listen to the silence, you know, to dedicate ourselves to a path of peace, to nonviolence, to engagement as well from that place. And so I'm just grateful. So if those of you who are joining us who are not in the practice period, you're joining our practice period on the 300 koan Shobogenzo of Dogen, the other Shobogenzo. And these are this text is a collection of his koans. I like to think of it as like a notebook because there are no commentaries, there's nothing else. And for hundreds of years, it was thought that it was made up, like that he didn't do it. But somebody found an ancient, you know, a 1300s or 1400s text that was his and was the same collection. And they feel like they verified, no, okay, he wrote it. But just to think about him wandering around China, you know, in the 1200s and in a time when, they didn't have Wikipedia and Google or even a printing press, and it was just collecting these stories. And this collection is really interesting in that it has a lot of correlations with other texts, with the other koan collections. He got some of them directly from like the Blue Cliff Record, and then other collections that make them up. And so I wanted to look at and explore with you all number 214 in the Shobogenzo, Feng Shui's particle of dust. How many people chose this as their koan? I'm curious. Anybody? Oh, any hands on the, Manny could tell me if there's anybody chose it online. Interesting. Yeah. Wendy Johnson made me do it. Thank you. She reminded me actually, and couldn't even remember this. So kudos to you that last year on January 6th, I gave a talk for winter practice period on case 50 of the Blue Cliff Record, every atom samadhi, chen chen. And so this is the same word, chen, dust, except I think it's in a pretty different context. So to the koan. Oh, and I should say, so Feng Shui Yanjiao, he's in the line of Rinzai, of Linji. And there's not a lot taught about him, but he was a great teacher and had thousands of students, they say. And Nan Yuan was his teacher. And there are a few koans with his name on them. And his name, Feng Shui, which is from, his mountain name, means wind cave. So Feng Shui Yanjiao taught the assembly, if you raise a particle of dust, the nation will flourish and the people will frown. If you do not raise a particle of dust, the nation will perish and the people will be at ease. So if you raise a particle of dust, the nation flourishes, the people frown. If you do not raise a particle of dust, the nation perishes and the people are happy. Why wouldn't you choose that one? It's obvious, right? No, it's a toughie. And I don't have any answers for sure, but what I loved about it was that it also showed up in Blue Cliff Record and Book of Serenity. And that's that part that I just read, which is the part that got into those other two collections, is only the first third of the koan. So we'll get into more of it shortly. But it's interesting to note in the Blue Cliff Record and Book of Serenity, it actually doesn't mention the people part. It just says, if you raise or lift or set up an atom of dust or a particle of dust, the nation will flourish. If you do not, the nation will perish. And that's it. And then it is said that Shredo, which I think means snow hole, Shredo raised his staff and said, are there any patch-robed monks who will live together and die together? And if you've heard that phrase before, it's because Wendy uses it, and it's this beautiful touch into together action. Are there any patch-robed monks who will live together and die together? And that's the whole of the koan in those collections. So Shredo doesn't show up in this older version, which is interesting. But the people, or the peasants, as it's sometimes said, do show up in the other collections as part of the commentary. And so, unlike with Dogen's Shobogenzo, these other collections have introductory verses. They have the koan itself. They have interlinear commentaries, which are really interesting because in the old text, in the Chinese, it doesn't actually say where the divisions are. There's no like parentheses. So it just kind of reads out, and I guess you have to just know what the original story was. And then there's a further commentary. And so that's all that can be, I was going to say it can be illuminating. It can also be very confusing. And what's wonderful about studying the koans is that you can realize through many commentaries and talks that there is no right answer. There really isn't like a way to interpret it correctly, other than um, your own clarity about it. I think that's perhaps the most important thing. And so, to raise a particle, to raise, to set up, to establish are all translations of this word in Chinese is li. And it's interesting, the character li, to stand, to set up, to establish, it's a symmetrical character that looks like a standing vase or something like that. And so it's literally like, to put something up, to raise it up. And a speck of dust shows up, of course, throughout the literature and in Dogen as it could mean everything. It could mean anything. It could mean the smallest particle, as it literally means. And so this sense of to set up a particle of dust, to set something up, anything. I think in this case, at least it might be fair to say that the meaning here is in the setting up. That's the important word. What are we doing to set, to raise, to establish? And Suzuki Roshi gave an important talk in the early days about this koan, and he talked about setting up a monastery. And Roshi Joan recently sent a picture around of this valley right here where Yapaya is and the Cerro Gordo Mountain from 1920. And there's almost nothing there, just a couple houses and just an empty field. And to think of, the dust motes that came together to create this space, one small action after another. And again, the ground for all of this incredible practice that we are fortunate to participate in. And so I think often people can say, I don't know about this, often people say, but it could be said that we don't want to do anything. We're about non-doing, right? We're just non-action, that raising dust, yes, maybe things will get done, the nation will flourish, but you'll be unhappy, the people will frown. And so just to say that all the good in the world that is created through the hard work of people setting up, establishing, there's so much that that's wonderful. Technology. And while the iPhone is a distraction, can be a distraction and can be something that causes suffering, it also is this wonderful tool. Our friend Bill DuBois calls it the wonder killer, though, because you never have to wonder about something for long before you just ask your iPhone, what does that mean? And now you can ask, the AI bots about it and get even more interesting, possibly incorrect information. I forgot to include in my talk, whenever you now ask the AI, like ChatGPT or Claude AI something, it'll give you a response. I mean, Claude AI is particularly good at saying, just to let you know, this is a relatively obscure reference, and I may be hallucinating parts of this answer. And so I just want to let you know that I may have made up some of what I'm about to say. But AI didn't write it, to the best of my knowledge. So building the monastery, or maybe it's setting up legislation for a whole nation. What does it take to create a happy society? So much work, so much effort, so much setting up, establishing, creating. And so I think therein the nation flourishes, right? Society does well by the structure, by the creation. But why do the peasants frown? Why do the people get unhappy? If we don't act, if we don't set up a speck of dust, if we allow things to be as they are, so a little bit this is our practice, right? We're so used to just doing, creating. Productivity. Everything is about productivity. Even not doing anything is mostly about productivity out there in the world. Meditation to boost your output, which is really funny if you think about it. But it works actually. That does actually. It does actually help. Um, ironically. So this word, the people, or the peasants, is literally in the Chinese, and I couldn't actually find the Chinese for Dogen, but I found it for the Blue Cliff Record in the commentary, and it's Ye Lao. And Ye is field or plain or open space, and Lao is old or an old person. So Ye Lao is like an old farmer. So you can see how that could be translated as the peasant or the people. And in Matthew Sullivan's wonderful book, I'm blanking on the title, A Garden of Flowers and Weeds, which is his commentary on the Blue Cliff Record. He talks about this koan, koan 50 in it, and says that there's this, this koan is coming from this Taoist, old Taoist, and it almost sounds Confucian, but I'm not sure, idea that the people will thrive when the state is small. It's kind of like the less that the governance can do and the more that it can allow the natural flow of life in the villages, then the happier people will be. And the more power and authority that the kind of federal government, they don't call it that, but the imperial hierarchy exercises, then the less happy the people will be. So that's an interesting gloss on it um, that I'm not sure if it's true or not. But then what else could this mean? This old farmer, and this is where I'd love to bring in Nishijima's translation. And so in the reader that we made for this practice period, we put 21 koans aside from the collection of 300 that had at least 2 references. And so this is one of them. And almost all of them have matching koans. So the Tanahashi Lori translation, which I was reading from, and then the Nishijima. And in studying this koan, I was very pleased to find that the Nishijima is kind of like a literal translation, right? A more literal translation. And here's what he says. So Master Fuketsu Ensho, so that's Shuifeng in Japanese, preached to an assembly. If we establish even a single molecule of matter, families and states will be prosperous, and I, an old man in a field, show anxiety on my face. If we don't establish a single molecule, families and states will decline, but I, an old man in a field, will feel stable and peaceful. And so he's translating guojia, which literally, is country or nation, but guo is country and jia is home. So it's like home country, but he's just splitting them up and he's saying families and states, which is interesting. But the move of making the people or the peasants Shuifeng, an old man, I thought was fascinating that it has that much ambiguity in it, if it's correct, which I assume it is, that it could be about him. And so I appreciated that it's like, so it's about we ourselves and our practice. If I set up a single particle, maybe the structures will work better, but I might not be happy. And so why is that? Yeah. Just to speak again to this feeling, and this has been a growing feeling of the danger and the possible damage of our kind of technological capitalist direction that we seem to be going in. And anybody who knows me knows I love technology. I've got my devices and I use them. And I also feel both the effect on myself, and I see it, of course, in society, and read about the negative impact on our attention and um, on our lives, possibly through not just the device itself, of course, it's the stuff that's on it. And it's really the nature of the things that are really making money off of our attention, right? They call it the attention economy. And their job is to steal our attention, to take our attention so that they can give it to advertisers. Because the more you're exposed to something, the more you're going to probably want it. And on the whole, you're exposed to it enough, you might want to buy it. And so rather than, some kind of altruistic, like you search for something and get the best answer, you're going to search for something and get the thing that most will make them money, right? And these kind of disembodied corporate entities who have no kind of person that's responsible, are there just to make money. And who is responsible for that? Well, we are, right? We're both responsible for it through our ownership, through our engagement with it, and we're also responsible for using it, when it's there. But it's also so I have a 3-year-old daughter, and screens are interesting because, like, I feel old that I didn't grow up with screens. I didn't even have screens in college, right? The smartphone didn't come around until after I graduated. And so to think about young people who are really raised with this stuff now is it's of course going to be the case. It's happening, and it's also like what's going to happen. We don't know what the causes are or what the effects will be, and it's already clear that attention spans seem to be getting shorter. The ability of kids to focus seems to be getting smaller, and so I want to be really careful with Skyla about what her screen use looks like. And she calls her grandmother on the phone, and she uses it quite a bit in that way, but no games or anything. But recently, and this was like a real wake-up call in a way, I got her a Kindle Fire. And the reason was because I was reading to her at night, kind of in the dim light, books, picture books, which she loved, and I'd always read to her on these books. And it was just hard on my eyes. And so I thought, okay, what if I got picture books on a screen, right? They're just picture books, but they're kind of like brighter. And so she can see them better. I can read. And so Amazon has this great thing, this Kindle for Kids, where you get all these free books, that you can read, and you don't have to buy every single one. So I was like, oh, great. And guess what? The Kindle Fire is only like $120. It's a great deal. It's like a tenth the price of an iPad, but it has a great screen. It looks beautiful, right? So you get this thing, and you get what you pay for, right? So, but I'm like, okay, I got to try it. Nicole's like, my wife, she's like, really, you're going to bring a screen? And no, just picture books, just picture books. So we get it, and it is great for the picture books, but it doesn't let you turn the rest of the stuff off. So it has, and it's designed for kids, and it's Kindle Fire for kids, and it has different age ranges. But even at the lowest age, which is 2, it's got all these icons, and it's like games and videos and TV and books and textbooks and picture books that talk and picture books that are actually games. And it has all these things. And I'm there trying to get a book, and Skyla's like, I want that, because it's all designed to capture her attention. And so, of course, I kind of, okay, let's check that out. And it turns out to be Cat in the Hat is amazing. It's wonderful. I love Cat in the Hat. And they created these books where they read it, and the pictures move a little bit, and the words, you can press a thing and the word will pop up. Hat, hat. cat, fish, blue, and it's very interactive. And so it's remarkable. It's a wonderful thing. And so, we're there like trying to get sleepy and ready for bed. And it's like, cat in the hat, And of course, I'm like, no, let's read this book Where the Wild Things Are, which is there's no kind of movement. I want a cat in the hat. I want a cat in the hat. She wants the stimulating thing. And then I accidentally downloaded a princess game that I thought was a book, but it was like actually a game that you play and you have to move the wand into her hand and then you fly the thing and it was like really fun and she only wanted that, not even Cat in the Hat. Get the Kindle, get the Kindle, get the Kindle. And I was just like, whoa, that's me too. And yeah, I don't have, except for Roshi, but I don't have somebody to tell me, stop that. Put that down. And so no more screen in bed. Kindle Fire is wonderful, but if I could just make it do the one thing and only that, and maybe erase her memory from the other things. So it's been a little bit of a challenge at bedtime now, just doing books, but I think she's getting used to it again. But yeah, that was just a bit of a wake-up call of what, again, this kind of culture we find ourselves in, which has wonderful benefits and also has this very dangerous edge that we have to be so careful about, because I get this feeling sometimes like our minds are going to be destroyed by this if we don't do something about it. And so I think Dharma practice is many things to many people, but I think it can be a refuge from that. It can be a training in countering that stream of attention grabbing. And we have to give ourselves to it too. So once again, thank you to those of you who are taking time out of your busy lives to dedicate yourself to doing less. And so in our practice, I'm reminded of a phrase from Song Sunim that Roshi brings up. Song Sunim is Roshi Jones' Korean teacher, first Korean teacher. Don't make anything. Right? Just very simple. Don't make anything. And that's what I heard when I heard to not set up a speck of dust, to not create. And so when we're on the cushion and the mind is, we're trying to be with our breath, and the mind naturally will begin to reactivate because, again, we're in stimulus withdrawal. And unlike with other stimulants, our mind is able to self-create stimulation. Isn't that remarkable? We could just be sitting there doing nothing. We think about the right thing and we are, totally activated, running through the forest away from a tiger, or in fantasy and memory and in arguing. They've done studies where people are ruminating and they kind of quiz them. Often human beings tend to ruminate, and most of the time it's negative rumination. It's like about anger or depression or what you don't like. Rarely is rumination or daydreaming or just mind wandering a positive thing, which is strange because I wouldn't have thought that. Or maybe mine is, but I don't know. No, it's probably not true. And so, of course, if we're just subject to mind wandering and rumination, we'll be unhappy. That's all we'll have. And so when we do this practice of not making anything, of releasing what's coming up, we can feel, maybe first we might feel like this sense of kind of, okay, calm, I'm in my breath. And then you might not even sense the things start to happen, the stimulation. And then there's a feedback loop, and then it's kind of on its way. Our whole job is to keep coming back and coming back and coming back to not making anything. And it's very useless, right? To sit there and not doing anything. You're not creating anything. You're not setting anything up. You're not lifting up the speck of dust or the world or the nation. In that moment, you're really not acting. As Kodo Sawaki Roshi said, Zazen is good for nothing. It's useless in that sense. But this old farmer is happy. And so therein, I think, is one way into that statement. If you do not set up a speck of dust, the nation will perish. But this old farmer is happy. And so we can find that peace, that ease, and being free of the need to constantly stimulate and to constantly grasp after the next thing, which, we think we have it bad now because of technology and culture, but this is the way it always was, according to the Buddha, was the way it was 2,000 years ago. We're driven by grasping and greed for things that we don't have, pushing away the things that we don't like. It's just the nature of samsara, of our life, of our world. But there is a way to be free through perhaps not making anything. But then we have this duality, we have this dichotomy, to raise a speck of dust, to not raise a speck of dust. Do we have to choose between creating a world full of life and activity and places, or not doing it? Does it have to be, a completely, like a skyscraper or an empty field? Or is there something in the middle? I did a koan and made way too many pages. Yeah. We do have to give a talk on Saturday, so we'll have to come back to that. And so raising a speck of dust, the nation flourishes, the old farmer frowns. Not raising a speck of dust, the nation perishes, the old farmer smiles. Do you understand? And so the koan continues from feng shui. If you realize clarity from this old monastic is an acharya, is a teacher. If you realize what I'm saying, I'm a teacher. If this is not clarified for you, then I'm just an old monastic. If you don't get it, I'm a monk. If you get it, I'm a teacher. Okay, I'm following you. The old monastic and the acharya, they can enlighten others and delude others. All right, so whether you're a teacher or a monastic, maybe something you say could illuminate reality for someone, or maybe something you say might delude them, might drive them deeper into samsara. We can't know. So he gives what I feel like, and I don't know this, but it feels like a Sandokai move, a harmony of relative and absolute. He says, do you want to understand this old monk? Just this. Do you want to understand the teacher? Just this. That was it. And so it's so interesting. And, you kind of have to wonder what was in the minds of those ancestors who put together the Blue Cliff Record and the Book of Serenity. They left that out. Just this. They left it out of that koan. But Dogen has it in. And so in the appendix of this wonderful book, which is the 300 koans, Tanahashi and Lori have done a lot of wonderful work on showing the lineages. And where I got, the kind of correlations is this wonderful grid that shows not just where they are from the koan collections, but also where else they show up in Dogen's, more widely known Shobogenzo, the Kana Shobogenzo, and his other works. And so this koan also shows up in a fascicle in his Kana Shobogenzo. And so I'd like to close just by reading the whole thing. No, just kidding. Um, to reciting part of it. This is fascicle 11, which is refrain from unwholesome action. And that's from the quote from the Buddha that goes way back. And what is it to walk the awakened way? Refrain from unwholesome action. Do wholesome action. This is the way of the Buddhas. So Dogen says, it is said, Buddha's true Dharma body is like the empty sky. It manifests forms responding to conditions, just like the moon reflected in the water. Because it is refrain from that responds to things, it is refrain from that manifests forms. It is like emptiness that claps towards the left and claps towards the right, like the moon reflected in the water. The moon is fully immersed in the water. In this way, refrain from is actualized without doubt. Do you understand? And so what's so wonderful about studying a koan like this is I would have read this, and I have read this fascicle on refrain from unwholesome action, and read, it is just like emptiness that claps toward the left and claps towards the right. And there's a parenthetical, without hindrance. Is that, Dogen's just making up this kind of poetic way of saying without hindrance, can clap this way and clap that way. But he's actually referring to the koan. And then that koan refers to other ones. And so there's this whole integration. So to read Dogen is to read the koan literature, and to read the koan literature is to explore it with Dogen for us. And so I hope that some of you have begun to explore your koans and are sitting with them, but also kind of looking into what else is there. You know. So I thank you for your presence, and really continue to be inspired by the practice of all of you who are here and are online in the cloud, and for perhaps people who watch this in the future. You never know what effect our words will have. So that's all I have.